A major southern winter storm on the way this week, with many folks seeing more than half a foot of snow, potentially double digits in some places. Welcome in, everybody. Hopefully, we're having an all right start to the week out there and a busy one on tap from really tomorrow into Wednesday and potentially even parts of Thursday. We're going to see heavy snowfall rates. We're going to see icing, travel impacts, the potential for power outages. Yeah, some cities are going to get shut down from this storm here into portions of the southern United States. And I've got the latest data for you and the latest model guidance as we continue to track this storm system and getting close. Today's Monday, tomorrow's the real big start date, and then Wednesday, the storm continuing out towards the Carolinas and Virginia, where I will say it's still not off the table to potentially see blizzard-like conditions in some of those states. Now, if you haven't already, go ahead, like the video, subscribe, and hit the bell for the latest notifications. Getting very close to 40,000 subscribers on the channel. Super exciting milestone that's really right on the doorstep. So if you want to help us get there, definitely hit the subscribe button. And thank you to our channel members. Appreciate everyone that has joined. And if you want to join, you can hit the join button right next to the subscribe button. Alrighty, folks, let's go ahead and dive on into the data. A lot to discuss on this Monday. Now, looping next to me, this is the latest European model showing that storm system starting down into the southern plains, moving through the Tennessee Valley, and eventually through the Carolinas, where the storm really begins to ramp up, the wind begins to increase, and those snowfall rates increasing. And I'll tell you who in some of those states in the southeast could get the highest totals and the highest impacts a little bit later on in the video. But before we get there, let's go ahead and analyze what's happening out there right now. Always so important to see what's happening on satellite currently to kind of get an idea of what is going to happen on down the road. And right now, the picture is pretty clear. Big storm system pulled out of the eastern U.S. overnight. You can see just that mess up into portions of Canada now. But behind it, what you see is very cold air rushing into much of the eastern half of the lower 48. That is going to set the stage with those Arctic temperatures for that southern stream energy to crank up, and the combination of both of them, that's what's going to lead to this major winter storm for many of us, and even some ice. Now, the trends overnight have been for more cold air and a slightly further south track. So that is good news for some snow lovers and not so great news for other snow lovers, specifically my friends in the Northeast. The track continuing to shift south. I'll tell you why that is later on, and why it's a little too soon to completely lose hope. Although, again, we cannot ignore that the trends are not great for some folks in the Northeast, but trending up for portions of the Carolinas and Virginia, and even portions of the Tennessee Valley for big snow potential out of this system. Now, taking a look at current radar, folks, yeah, you can definitely see all of that energy moving around. Check out eastern Canada and the eastern U.S. A big old shield of snow up through portions of Canada. And then we've got northwest flow and lake effect snow moving all the way down from New York State into portions of West Virginia. Snowshoe up through the Alleghenies getting some snow. Heck, even all the way back down into Virginia and portions of North Carolina seeing some flakes fly around from this northwest flow event. Now we'll move it back to the west a little bit. You can see a couple areas of energy out here getting the job done, and I want to kind of point out a couple. So you see this first little area near Nebraska, Iowa, and Missouri. That's not even technically our storm system. That's a little kind of shortwave piece of energy out ahead of it, bringing a little bit of snow. The main show still back into the PNW and the Northern Rockies, where you're seeing that rain into coastal Washington and snow from Montana to Idaho, back to the Cascades, moving towards Yellowstone. That's our real piece of energy that's going to produce this storm by the time we get into overnight tonight and into tomorrow. Let's take a look at those current alerts out there and what an active scene it still is for many of us. Still dealing with wind in the Northeast with wind advisories and high wind warnings, but newly issued winter storm warnings now into effect for portions of southeastern Kansas, southern Missouri, northern Arkansas, northeastern Oklahoma, and even now portions of West Tennessee in those pink areas, and winter storm watches in the light blue, which could be upgraded to winter storm warnings or winter weather advisories, which we already have in effect for much of Nebraska, northern Missouri, and even northwestern Kansas. Now, throughout the day today, by the time you come back tonight for another update, I'm expecting this to get expanded into the Carolinas and portions of Virginia, again, by this evening, as the start time will be within 48 hours at that point. In fact, it'll probably come sometime this afternoon. So definitely, you might get a little ding on your phone saying winter storm watch issued. any point today in North Carolina or portions of Virginia and South Carolina. Now, I do want to talk a little bit about the setup here for this storm in a little bit of a different way. Normally, I show you the vorticity map, and we will later on in today's video. But kind of another little feature going to produce some of this snow over the central plains, and that's where we're going to start with this storm, and then we're going to shift off to the east towards the Carolinas, Kentucky, and Tennessee in a moment after that. But this is our upper level map depiction here come overnight tonight and overnight tomorrow night and into the next day. And I'll back it up a little bit more. This is probably a little bit of a better place to put it. So this is tomorrow afternoon. One of the reasons we're going to see some of this snow is some upper level divergence. I always talk about this in my videos. Basically, upper level divergence is, well, what it sounds like. It's air that is diverging or separating. Basically creates a void in between, and that void needs to be filled. So air at the surface begins to rise to replace it, and it's that rising motion that leads to lower pressure, precipitation forming, and in this case, the potential for some snowfall. So here's kind of the setup, folks. We've got some pretty strong winds over Kentucky, Tennessee, and the Ozarks by tomorrow, but lighter winds back here over portions of Kansas, Colorado, and basically what this is creating is a void. So you've got kind of light winds moving slowly, and then you've got stronger winds moving much quicker, and it's that gap in between that ends up getting filled, and that's going to be right into this region of Kansas, Oklahoma, into Missouri and Arkansas, and funnily enough, that's exactly where we're going to see the highest snowfall total. So I always love looking at these upper level maps. Really explains the picture at the surface, and this one no different. So with that said, let's start diving down into some of this model guidance for you folks down this way. And I think this is an area that could really get a lot of snow, folks. Even double digits not out of the question through portions of Missouri into this one. And we'll go ahead and time it out. This basically right now, later this morning on your Monday, you can see that northern stream energy. I already told you about kind of that precursor event up into Nebraska, Iowa, portions of northern Missouri and Kansas, becoming a little bit lighter throughout the day into portions of Iowa, but moving south. And then our main piece of energy into the Rockies moves in, catches up to it, and the real show begins overnight. This is flipping the calendar from Monday into Tuesday right at 12 a.m. And to notice that heavy snow, and by the time we're waking up tomorrow, I think the storm really getting going through Kansas, portions of central and southern Missouri seeing that snowfall, bit of an icy mix potentially down into the Oklahoma City area. Snow as far west as the Texas Panhandle on this model run. Keep it going ahead. This is into Tuesday afternoon. Folks, this is moderate snowfall, and I will mention this is going to be moderate snow in very cold temperatures. We're talking teens, even single digits up into Nebraska and portions of Kansas. So this is going to be a snow that sticks very easily. It's going to be kind of that powdery snow that accumulates very easily as well. And at these heavy snowfall rates with a powdery kind of high ratio snowfall, that's a recipe for some pretty high end totals in this region, specifically kind of again where you see this heaviest banding setting up right between Kansas, Oklahoma, and Missouri, kind of along the state lines there. Moving ahead into Tuesday evening, that heavy snow getting into the southern Ozarks of Missouri, the northern Ozarks of Arkansas, portions of Oklahoma back up towards the Tulsa area, seeing moderate snowfall. A bit of an icy mix here into the Little Rock area of Arkansas. That continues over towards Memphis, seeing some of that icy, snowy mix. Ice trying to get as far south here as the I-20 corridor northbound into Louisiana, northern Mississippi, seeing a little bit of an icing event this overnight Tuesday going into early Wednesday morning. And here we go, waking up about 7 a.m. on Wednesday, and the storm pulling away, and most of it done, but not before dropping some pretty good snowfall totals for folks into the region. And let's take a look at some of that. And this is the latest forecast from the National Weather Service, showing that double-digit snowfall potential, specifically down here into kind of southwestern Missouri there, where we could see 10 inches of snow into southeastern Kansas. Back down towards Tulsa points north could see half a foot of snow. But the thing to note with this storm, and really most winter storms, is how sharp the gradient is. Notice right here where Kansas, Missouri, and Oklahoma meet, nearly a foot of snow possible, but you go back down towards Oklahoma City and more of a dusting to an inch of kind of an icy mess. So you're going to have a very sharp gradient here into northeastern Oklahoma. Same story for northern Arkansas, where there's going to be a sharp gradient. Little Rock, maybe only half an inch to an inch of kind of an icy mix. You go up north towards the Missouri state line, half a foot of snow possible for you. Kansas City, about half a foot. St. Louis, also a sharp cutoff on the northern end of this. Right now, it looks like about a 3 to 6 inch event snow, 3 to 6 inch snowfall event for you, sorry. And then further north, a lot less. So definitely be mindful. If you're in the bullseye here, you're sitting pretty right now. If you're on kind of the fringe, anywhere kind of in this area that I have circled, if I could circle it a little bit better, that's the areas that this could kind of boom a little bit higher or bust on the lower side, just given that these small differences in the models and in that forecast could have big ramifications on what happens at your house. So go ahead, take it easy on your local Mets. But again, if you're in that bullseye through southern Missouri, feeling good that you're going to get half a foot to a foot of snow out of this snowfall event. And unfortunately, that's not the only threat here. Ice, another concern. Let's take a look at it here. This is the latest NAM model showing that potential for 1/10 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch of ice in southern Arkansas, back towards southern Oklahoma, and even as far south as northern Louisiana and potentially into northern Mississippi. The worst of it probably going to be in this Little Rock area, I would say. I know some of the area here circled doesn't technically have ice, but I think that circled area into southern Arkansas going to probably get the worst of it. That's where we could see 1/10 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch. Everyone else kind of in this yellow circled area could be more of that glaze to 1/10 of an inch type of event here out of this storm system. So gonna see some ice impacts as well. Luckily, not a blockbuster crippling ice storm, but gonna see some of that ice nonetheless before all is said and done. And that gets us on over to our friends in the Carolinas. Personally, where I'm recording this video from in Charlotte, North Carolina, expecting some snow out of this one. And it's going to be a tough forecast for some. It always is whenever it comes to snow in the southeast. I can tell you, grown up here my whole life, and plenty of storms have been very wrong in sometimes good ways and bad ways. And this is going to be the same for some of you. Now, I think we're gaining confidence that an area in North Carolina and Virginia is likely going to see half a foot plus of snow. The question is who? And I know that's something you hate to hear, the who part, because we're only 2 days away and you're thinking, all right, we should know by now. And we are definitely gaining confidence. But I'll kind of show you the tough part of the forecast here in just a moment. But let's pick it up here. This is the latest European model starting, again, right around midnight Wednesday morning. You can see that snow back out towards Arkansas, snowing in Memphis, going towards Nashville, Kentucky getting some snow, even southern Illinois, Indiana, trying to get in on the action. And notice the storm on the European kind of dries up a little bit here. So you've got a nice little band of snow up here into Kentucky. And then it kind of becomes a little bit lighter back down towards Nashville, into Chattanooga, northern Mississippi, Alabama, a little bit of kind of a dry slide here. And basically what's happening is this is where our energy in the northern stream and the southern stream are phasing together. So Kentucky, you're far enough north that the northern stream is creating its own lift, enough for you to get snow. And down south, we've got enough lift from the low pressure itself that we've got a lot of rain. But that kind of in-between zone here into northern Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, North Georgia, and even the western Carolinas, right now in the models, you're kind of in that tricky zone where you could kind of get the dry slot out of this one. And not to say you will, but it's unfortunately for my snow lovers, a real potential I'm watching. And you can see that here on the European. I'll move this ahead. Notice light snow for sure in Knoxville, Chattanooga, Nashville, Asheville even. Up towards Boone, but then notice the storm really starts cranking off the Carolina coast. We get heavier precip values into Raleigh, Elizabeth City, up into Virginia Beach, really just southeast Virginia in general. We've got some light to moderate snow in Charlotte, but lighter snowfall back towards Greenville, Spartanburg, Anderson, Pickens, into Transylvania County. Kind of the western Carolinas there in general. If I move it ahead, European, it's a sharp cutoff, unfortunately. A nice, again, burst of kind of some light to, or really moderate to even heavy snow here, specifically northeastern North Carolina, southeastern Virginia. This little area right in here is where the models have really been the most excited in the overnight and morning runs so far for an area of big snow potential. And I think it's going to happen. Now, will it happen exactly in that circle? That's what we don't know right now. This could shift back towards Greensboro and Charlotte a little bit. This could shift north a little bit towards Richmond a little bit. Heck, if the trends continued, maybe it could even shift south a little bit. But someone in this general circle is probably going to get a big burst of snow out of this one that could lead to more than half a foot. And I'm feeling pretty confident in that. Just a matter of who is still the part we're going to have to iron out. But nonetheless, snow on Charlotte, Greensboro, Raleigh, heaviest rates back into northeast North Carolina, southeast Virginia. The storm starts cranking up. Heavy snow continuing from Raleigh back to Elizabeth City. This was a great run for our folks in Raleigh from the morning Euro. Actually, no, I just realized we're on the overnight Euro. So, well, actually, no, that's fine. That's good. We'll keep on going here. Pretty similar to the morning run anyway. You can see that heavy snow back out into eastern North Carolina, southeast Virginia, beginning to taper down by the evening of Wednesday in Charlotte and the western Carolinas, and the storm really continuing to crank up and still expecting kind of that bomb cyclogenesis out of this thing, just kind of pulling away as it does so. So you can see that heavy snowfall rate there into eastern North Carolina and Virginia, and then a gap, and then notice another little piece of northern stream energy tries to come in behind it and produce some snow showers and very cold air. This will be Tuesday morning, and then by Tuesday afternoon, just Arctic air settles in for much of the Carolinas. Now, I want to show you this. This is the NAM model, and unfortunately, I think the NAM illustrates that concern I have for that dry slot pretty well. Now, it looks better through Tennessee, northern Alabama, Kentucky. Again, a nice little burst of snow there, but watch what happens in the western Carolinas. That phasing, again, kind of happens at this point. The northern stream energy creating a lot of lift over our baroclinic east coast zone here, and our low pressure that would be bringing this shield of snow into the upstate and into the mountains kind of loses its energy a little bit, and a new area forms right off the coastline as that happens. And we'll move it ahead here. Notice that gap in the snow. We get a big burst into eastern North Carolina, Raleigh, back down towards Fayetteville seeing ice, Virginia Beach seeing heavy snow, Elizabeth City seeing winter weather. But we've got just a nasty dry slot on the model here in Charlotte, Greenville, Spartanburg, Asheville, back down to Columbia. And you keep it ahead here, and kind of the same thing. The storm really cranks up along the coast. We get an all-out winter storm in eastern North Carolina, southeast Virginia, and then pulls away. But really just not much happening in the upstate into Asheville, even Charlotte, just Charlotte to GSP. That kind of corridor is a zone we need to watch to kind of get screwed on this one. The good news, today is Monday. This is Wednesday, and time after time again, these things change up to the last second. So it's one of those times you might not even really want to be in the bullseye at this point. But definitely watching that potential of kind of somebody getting a bit of a dry slot as this energy phases. But if the storm shifts west a little bit, then the triad back to Charlotte could be back in the jackpot zone. Even the upstate could get back in on the fun. But we'll just have to watch the trends, and that's why you'll have to come back again tonight. Always have to with these winter storms in kind of these setups. All right, the Northeast. Don't get mad at me. Don't try to be as nice as you can in the comments. The trends have not been nice for you, and trust me, I've been reading the comments all year. It's time after time again. I've heard it from you folks saying that the trends are not your friends come this winter, but unfortunately, that looks to continue here. Here's the latest European. Yeah, not a lot going on here. Still, that bomb cyclone off the coast accelerates in its strengthening process quickly. Just a little too far offshore for snow. Now a little bit of snow here, maybe along the coastal regions. Some, again, upper level energy trying to, produce a little bit of snow, combining with the coastal storm a little bit here through Massachusetts. This would be overnight Thursday. I will also caution you, though, right now this looks like the most likely scenario, but today's Monday. This would be kind of a Thursday storm for you. That's a couple of days for things to change, and we've seen crazy changes 5 minutes beforehand, let alone, 3 or 4 days. So we'll watch it. Not very good trends here to the Northeast. I'll talk about why that is here in this next segment. So let's go ahead and talk about the nitty-gritty meteorology, and then we'll talk snowfall and ice totals and that Arctic air to end out the video. Here's the European on the setup. This kind of skinny area of vorticity you see here, that's the cold air. Basically, what's happening is it was up here, and it's getting brought back down and stretched towards the east. That's providing our Arctic outbreak for much of us ahead of the storm and after the storm, both. The main piece of energy, though, here's our southern stream. This is overnight Tuesday. All this southern stream energy helping to create that lift over that area. We're going to get a lot of snow back through Missouri, Kansas, Oklahoma, back into Arkansas. Northern stream cold energy right up here as they start to work together on the European. Right here is when things get exciting. We start to get a pretty tremendous amount of lift here over portions of the Carolinas, Virginia, and that's why this storm really starts cranking up off the Carolina coast as it pulls north, and that's why I think we still have blizzard potential somewhere in kind of this circle from northern North Carolina, northeastern North Carolina, into southeast Virginia. Whenever we look at the snowfall totals, you'll see what I'm talking about in just a moment. But still, same thinking here. The only thing that has really changed is the positioning of our upper level cold source. So notice it parks right over Pennsylvania by kind of Thursday. That, again, that's that second upper level piece of energy. So could this produce some snow showers in the mid-Atlantic and Northeast after the storm? Absolutely, it could. We'll watch that. But unfortunately, it's kind of suppressing the track of the storm further off to the south and east, and that's why New England is kind of getting the shaft on this one. Now, if we look at this is the trend on the European over time. This was a couple runs ago when it was showing a big coastal storm in the Northeast. Notice the position of the cold source. And I want you to watch as I move this ahead. It just keeps shifting south and east, and that's suppressing our track. What was once here along the coast is now getting shifted with that suppression with the cold air moving in. So here's kind of the loop of it. A couple runs ago, a newer run, newer, so on and so forth. And you can see how that kind of cold lobe up north keeps shifting south. So I'll run through one more time. You can just see that progression, that cold air pushing south, that's suppressing the storm track, unfortunately, again, for you folks. Now, good news for the Carolinas. That's been bringing even colder air. That means this is going to be more likely a snow event in Charlotte and Greensboro and maybe even Raleigh than maybe it looked a couple of days ago. It looked a little bit more icy then. Now it looks a little bit snowier. So that's the good news for you folks. But unfortunately, the Northeast is probably going to have to pay the price because of it. All right, snowfall totals. Let's take a look at some models. We'll start here in the Tennessee and Ohio Valley. This is the European, and it's going to be very cold up here, folks. So this is going to be a higher than a 10-to-1 ratio. A 10-to-1 is kind of your normal, so-called normal average snowfall ratio. This one probably going to be closer to 1-to-12, 1-to-15 in this region. So even without a lot of precip, we could see a zone of 3 to 5 inches in Kentucky, maybe 2 to 3 back into northern Tennessee. You can see kind of some banding in here of some higher end areas. That's always the case with snowfall. Some places get a little bit more than others. You can see another little dry slot showing up on the model here. It might not be in these exact places, but nonetheless, you get the point. There's going to be some variation here. And this is the European, by the way. I'll show you the GFS. Even snowier through Kentucky and Tennessee, shows the storm holding on a little bit stronger in that region. Gets more of kind of a 5 to 8 inch event there through Kentucky, more of a 2 to 4, 3 to 5 back down into Tennessee. But you get the point. A nice little winter storm for some of these areas, looking more likely. If I had to give you a forecast, I think Kentucky going to be the biggest winner here in this area, at least of we'll say about 3 to 5 inches, and then you get back down south towards kind of Nashville. And areas back towards just north of Memphis here, probably going to be, more of a 1 to 3 plus event. So you could get 4 or 5 inches in some isolated spots, but 1 to 3 going to be the most likely solution in that region. Now let's move it east towards the Mid-Atlantic. Here's the latest European run. And the first thing that immediately jumps out is that giant bullseye of snow. This is what I was telling you about. Again, I think someone in Virginia or North Carolina is going to get absolutely just pasted with heavy snow. In fact, the European, this latest run shows more than a foot of snow in portions of Northeast North Carolina. Now, when we cross the foot mark, it'll be tough, but it will also be possible with a setup like this. The key, though, you see where the bullseye is on this run right now. That could shift back this way. That could shift this way. It could shift this way. It could shift this way. Heck, it could even shift out to sea a little bit. That's going to be the fun part in the forecast over the next couple of days. But either way, the European still shows snow back down into Charlotte, Greensboro. Shows pretty good snow near 3 or 4 inches in Raleigh, about 1 to 3 inches in Greensboro and Charlotte. Another thing to note on the model, check out this dry slot over the upstate. Not a great look for Greenville, Spartanburg. I'll show you another model, though, that's a little bit more favorable for areas further that direction. Here's the icon. You can see that big snow bullseye. It's there. It's a little bit further north. Gets more snow into the Triad, into Charlotte. More of a 2 to 3 inch event. Upstate, still kind of dry on that run. The GFS. Gets a little bit more snow, I-85 north in the upstate, around an inch in Greenville, Spartanburg, Pickens, Anderson, Walhalla. And then you can see, again, that big bullseye of snow. So that's what we're feeling confident in right now. There's going to be an area of heavy snow. I'm very confident in that. The question is, how does it shift between now and when the storm actually happens on Wednesday? It'll be very interesting to see in the models. A lot of the times we get a last-second little northwest jog. If you remember the big winter storm we had in the southeast back in January, the big Gulf Coast storm for the Carolinas, it looked like a nothing burger. Right around this time, the storm had almost died on us. And then right beforehand, we pulled it back in and ended up getting a ton of snow at the coast. Even got snow in Charlotte, parts of the upstate, the Midlands, and into even the Raleigh area. So will this storm be the same? That it kind of comes back to life a little bit more at the last second. It's a very real possibility. And that's what I'll be watching for in the models throughout today and tomorrow. Ice, another concern. Now, I think the ice threat, again, shifting kind of with the storm a little bit closer to the coast. So I-95 in North Carolina right now looks like the bullseye where we could see more than a 1/4 of an inch of ice. I think this back towards Columbia and into the upstate, a little less likely to happen. In fact, if I show you, this was the blend, by the way. Normally it's a little delayed. If I show you the European itself, yeah, it's a big ice storm into Wilmington, Fayetteville, into Jacksonville, North Carolina. And even into the Greenville, North Carolina area, showing big ice potential. I'll look at the Canadian model. I mean, that's incredible agreement between the two. That's the European, that's the Canadian, and then the GFS a little bit further north and even get some ice back into Charlotte. But ice will be a concern with this storm, and that unfortunately could lead to some power outages and definitely some kind of rough travel out there. Final thing we'll talk about, that's the cold air. And I think this again will be a concern. Whatever falls is not going to immediately melt. These are temperature anomalies for this afternoon here on your Monday. Look at that block of Arctic air into the northern tier, ready to bring the boom, if you will, back down south. And unfortunately, right after a winter storm. So like I said, if we get, half a foot of snow somewhere in North Carolina or Virginia, watch where this Arctic air goes. Yeah, right in your direction. This is by right before the storm on Wednesday. Then we go into Thursday. This would be after the storm. I mean, this is crazy cold, folks. Back into Kansas, Missouri, Oklahoma, Arkansas. We're talking 40 degrees below what we should be this time of year. I know everyone's talking about the snow, myself included, but this is dangerous cold. You're going to need to go ahead and have a plan figured out if you lose power, and then this happens. And notice it just parks over the east through this weekend. And then I think by the time we get to next week, about 7 to 10 days from now, signs of another warm up, and hopefully the pattern will quiet down a little bit, and we can kind of get a second to breathe. Alrighty, folks, that's all I've got for you. Again, if you haven't already, go ahead, like the video, subscribe, hit the bell for the latest notifications so you're up to date and getting very close to 40,000. So help us get there if you are willing and if you enjoyed the video. Also, if you want to become a channel member, definitely consider doing so by hitting the join button next to the subscribe button. All right, y'all have a great one. Stay safe, stay warm, and I'll see you all next time.